Heads, the night floater mythos. I'm on the Trans-Canada Highway, heading west, and I'm not planning to stop until I reach the Pacific. Even now, I may not be safe. In the end, they got Jon, and I know they will get me, if they can. I realize I'm a victim of the paranormal, or at least of my shared interest with Jon in the paranormal. We were the new decadents, sharing our contempt for everyday suburban living and our love of the weird and outré. We were into horror, books and movies, as well as the factual stuff on YouTube, all the paranormal and urban exploration channels. And so we determined to do a little exploring on our own. Jon and I were students in film studies, and for our major project planned to make a short film about the urban legend that haunted our college town. The Night Floaters. What are the night floaters? Floating heads, aka night floaters or floaters, were an anomalous phenomena reported throughout the history of the town. The name referred to the ability of certain individuals to detach their heads from the trunks of their bodies, the heads then being able to fly or float at will. They were said to attack unsuspecting victims, biting them and sometimes even killing them. The flying heads made a moaning sound when, at a distance, a keening that faded to silence as they approached. And they could also apparently animate their headless bodies and use them to chase and to strangle victims. Our fellow students, who'd grown up in town, had all heard of the night floaters. Everyone knew of someone, a friend or relative, that had an encounter with them, but none of them had actually seen a flying head. One especially lurid story that we heard involved a young man who had encountered the night floaters during a satanic ritual taking place on Walpurgis night. Walpurgis night, April 30th, a night when the dead and the forces of evil were said to roam the earth. This event had apparently taken place many years before, in the 70s or 80s, and the man involved had long since disappeared. The event had apparently happened at an old farm silo, which had also disappeared. Naturally, Jon and I determined to explore the scene of the crime. After questioning a number of people who'd grown up in the area, we determined the old silo had been located in a large field north of the CN train tracks and south of the busy Queen Elizabeth Highway. We left Jon's old Saturn at a nearby strip mall, not trusting to the old rutted dirt trail that led to the field, choosing to hoof it instead. Jon had a camera we borrowed from school, and we both had our phones, of course. It was a gorgeous night with a full moon, so we hoped to get some good footage for our film project. At first, the dirt path was screened by thick bands of trees, which blocked our view of what lay ahead, although we did get some atmospheric shots of moonlight streaming through the branches. Then, suddenly, the woods thinned, and we could see the field beyond. We saw a clearing, awash with moonlight, and in the center of it stood the silo itself. The silo, a sentinel of leprous, weathered concrete, standing amongst the ruined foundations of a long-vanished barn. They all said the old silo was gone, Jon said in amazement, as we both stared at the scene before us. Maybe, I answered, but you know, they probably didn't really know. Anyway, it's here now. Let's go have a look. We began walking forward, and got another surprise. We hadn't noticed it at first, but near the barn's ruined foundation blazed a small fire, like a campfire, and it was surrounded by a number of small black candles, 13 of them, in fact, arranged in the shape of a pentagram. Didn't that story, the one about the guy who interrupted the satanic ritual, didn't it mention 13 candles and a pentagram? John said. It's April 30th, you know, Walpurgis night. Tonight, like right now. He sounded quite anxious, but I just laughed. We're being trolled, I said loudly, so that anyone listening would hear me. Didn't we tell some of those guys at school we planned to come out here tonight? But John wasn't really listening to me, for instead he said, "What's that noise?" "What noise?" "That moaning sound." That's only the wind," I said. "The wind or the cars on the Queen. We're not that far away from it, you know." I started walking towards the ruined foundations, and as I did I sang out, "All right, you guys, you can come out now." I was firmly convinced that some of our fellow students were playing a practical joke on us. But in spite of my calling out to them, no one stepped out. A dark opening in the side of the foundation led to a crawl space, the perfect hiding spot, so I shone the light from my phone inside, expecting to see grinning faces. But that's not what I saw. Instead, what I did see was a pile of bodies both male and female, some dressed, some naked, all headless, and unless they were murder victims, I realized with a shock that those night floater things, the things that were supposed to be able to remove their heads from their bodies, those night floaters were real. I heard a shout from behind me, and turning around, I saw John running like hell towards the nearby woods. At first, I had no idea as to why he was running, until I saw the heads. At first, I thought they might be birds or orbs, you know, the paranormal phenomena orbs, until I saw the red flashing eyes. I then realized they were human heads, pale, fish-belly white, with long black hair flowing out behind them, male and female, the faces thin, pinched, and dirty. I went to hide in a crawl space, only to find the headless bodies rising from the dirt floor and beginning to shamble towards the opening. I took off for the woods, too. I figured it was my best chance for safety from the flying heads. Branches, you know, could put out an eye. It was silent in the woods, although I could hear things crashing through the foliage overhead. And in the underbrush, were those headless things chasing us too? I kept calling out to John, but softly, eh? "John! John! John!" I wanted to find him, but I didn't want those things finding me. I heard that moaning sound again. Did it mean the things were flying away or getting closer? I could no longer remember. John didn't answer. I hoped to find him when I got back to the car. But he wasn't there either. I waited 15 minutes for him, and then I drove back to the old house we shared on Kerr Street. John was sitting in the dark in his favorite armchair. Man, I'm glad to see you," I cried. "What happened to you?" "You know how we wanted to find out about the night floaters," he said, and his voice sounded kind of funny. "Yeah," I answered, and now my voice sounded kind of funny too. I heard a loud plop. Then John said, The easiest way The easiest way to find out about the night floaters is to become one. And I saw to my horror that his head had detached from his body and was floating in midair as he grinned at me, his red eyes flashing. And that's why I'm in Jon's car, driving west as fast as I can to get as far away as I can from those things. But every time I pass a light standard, I see either a floating head or a headless body. Will they let me get away? I keep touching my head and neck to make sure they're still attached. They are still attached, right? Right? Aren't they? Aren't they? Plop. The moral of the story: it's too bad things went wrong for Jon, our hero, and their project. After all, they were only trying to work ahead. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the night floaters, werewolves, and the black-eyed children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,500 subs. Till midnight. Cheers. Pictures used in today's video, courtesy of Pix here, that's PX here, while the music was the classic Ghost Processional, the perfect Mythos music, by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod.